Hello and welcome to the Record Club, brought to you by Record Store Day, the official charts and National Album Day, and proudly in association with Bowers and Wilkins. My name is Jess Izzat, and we are excited to say that our guest today is Låpsley, chatting all about her brilliant new album, I'm a Hurricane. I'm a Woman in Love, and almost sung it then, which would have been really bad. If you've hung out with us here before, you will know that we're going to be spending the next half an hour or so talking to Lapsy all about the new record. Then we're going to be putting forward some of your questions about the album for her to answer. So get involved, drop us a question in the comments section below. I'll be asking a selection of them in the second half of our chat. And on top of that, someone who sends in a question today is going to be randomly selected to win a pair of Bowers and Wilkins PX7 Season 2 over-ear noise cancelling headphones. Don't miss out, get your questions to us. And if you haven't already got yourself a physical copy of the album, make sure you order one from your local record store once our chat is over. But let's get into this week's Record Club and say a big hello to Låpsley.
Woo, hey Jess, thanks so much for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. I know you're busy. I know you've been doing loads of things. But most importantly, we're here to talk all about the record.
Yeah, album number 4, which is wild.
I know. That is actually four is crazy.
Makes me feel like a really old person, but I'm only 28.
I feel like that makes you like an album veteran.
Yeah.
A little
Yeah,
bit.
but also
Yeah.
like loads to compare. This is my
Yeah, this
favorite
is
one,
true.
to be fair, out of them all, so I'm chuffed.
Okay, good. Well, we're going to get stuck right in a second, but we like to start the record club with a question from one of the many amazing independent record stores in the UK. And this week it comes from Pie and Vinyl in Southsea. They actually sent four questions, which I think is a little bit greedy. So I picked two. Number one, the new album is the first released on your very own label. Can you tell us the process from starting the label to releasing the record?
Oh, so in order to start a label, I mean, technically you don't really need anything. When you work with like a distribution service, you can like um it says at the end, like, just as you upload it, if there's a name of a label. And 10 years ago, no, maybe it was 11 years ago now, when I first uploaded Station and Painter, which is the songs that kind of like started my whole career. I uploaded them myself onto Spotify and they were like, what's the name of the label? And I just put Her Own Recordings. And it was this wild pipe dream that I always had to be able to start a label called Her Own Recordings. And then after the third album, I parted ways with my previous label and was like, this is the time. Um, and so it kind of started this process of trying to find a team. I needed like a project manager, I needed a digital person, radio, and yeah, I just found consultants in all of those different areas. And my team are based all around the world, so we're all like digital nomads. And our call is on a Wednesday night, which is really funny. So after this, I've got like 2 hours with the team, and we're all on different time zones, and this is the kind of the only time that we can get it happening. But it was about a 4 month lead up before the first single of the album Church came out in October, in terms of like prep and trying to get all of our ducks in a row. But it was amazing. Like the day that the record came out, it was such a feeling of satisfaction to have it out on your label with your team, and you've creative directed it and you've been in charge of the whole thing, and you've been able to create ethical working practices for the people that you work with. So yeah, that's kind of the story really, and it's been growing every month since. Really, we've added people and brought in different consultants for different things. But yeah, the focus is to put out music by women and non-binary individuals, and so far we've only have enough cash for one album at a time, and it happens to be me. So yeah.
Well, it's her own recording, so
Yeah.
there we go. I always find that actually sometimes the name is what, or like thinking of a name, not only is the hardest part, but it's the bit that like holds you back sometimes from launching your own thing because you want it to like,
You want it to
that's
sound
the thing that's
sick.
going to stick. Yeah. So, I mean, smash. Yeah, thanks, Pine Vinyl. Wicked question. But also they followed up with, we've got to ask, what's your favorite name? Because theirs is Beryl.
Beryl, as in like name that you've been called.
I don't know. This is where it got a bit random, really. There were more random questions,
Do you know
but
what's funny? It's like my full name is Holly Lapsley Fletcher, and everybody used to call me Lapsley or Fletcher in school. And now I just go by any of them, but I guess like Lapsley is my, I want to say work name, but it's not just work because everybody in my life calls me that. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I'm definitely more of a Lapsley than a Holly. Um,
yeah, pie and vinyl. Thank you. We love you. And yeah, maybe we could go for a pie there. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna ask sort of Semi their other random one. What's your favorite pie?
oh, funny you asked that. I once had a chicken korma pie, which was absolutely slapped, and it had like a tiny bit of mango chutney on the side. It was somewhere in York. We were like visiting family friends. Um, so yeah, that was niche. But like the key to a good pie is like the flaky crust. Not
Yeah,
that anyone was
definitely.
asking for tips, but
I actually, usually a fusion like that is a bit blasphemous, but I'm down.
no,
I
no,
don't know
I
where
know.
you got
I
that
was
from, but maybe I'm gonna
surprised.
have to ask you
I
after.
was really surprised. You know when it was like the last one on the menu?
Yeah, yeah. So you went for that one.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
God,
yeah.
that is actually so rogue. Right, enough about the pie chat. I'm a hurricane, I'm a woman in love. I'm really bad with lyrics, but obviously listening to that on the album, I was singing that, so that's the first one I got. At what point did that become the title of the record?
Um, I always felt like that was one of the strongest songs. There was two more verses in it, so it was this like endless song that had this kind of climax at the end. Um, but in the end, I was like the team collectively decided that that was way too long to be a single, and the only way I'd be able to have it center stage was to take some of those verses out. And yeah, I don't know. I think I was thinking about what song kind of summed up all of the different feelings of all the different songs because like overall the song is about love as this like wild kind of female energy and the love that I have for myself and the love that I have for other people, and I kind of document it like through this album. um and I wanted to talk about love in like not um like a beautiful, sweet way. I wanted to talk about it in an all-encompassing way. And I think to talk about love as a hurricane, or a woman's love as like a hurricane, is like kind of both talks about like the calm after the storm, but also like the way that we I guess call women crazy. And it kind of summed up the nuttiness that I was trying to touch on. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like also that tune as an opener is just huge and it like sort of sets the tone for the rest of the record. And for anyone who doesn't know, I mean, we were chatting just before we went live and you said that actually it was 2 years in the making, this record. But not just that, it kind of tells the story of your relationship or kind of relationships. I'm gonna let you
Oh yeah, this album's
describe,
about a love
but like,
triangle.
yeah.
How very Fleetwood Mac of me. Um, it's funny, the opening line of the whole record is I don't push the boat out, I make storms. And I'm the kind of person that's always gone through my life and semi-caused chaos, but like learned a lot of lessons on the way. But I definitely go down the roughest path before I learned the biggest lesson. Um, and I was in a relationship with the person who I made the album with. He's called Greg, and he is still someone that I work with loads now. But we had this amazing relationship, and it was like super intense because, like, I think being in the studio is like inherently quite like a vulnerable space, and so to suddenly have that second level of depth um, was a bit nutty and insane. And he lived in South Africa, and we decided to open it up because of the long distance. And then I met my current partner now. And for a period of time, I was dating them both. And I think I had this assumption that like I would have to choose between one and the other, but I somehow had enough love for like more than one person, and it made sense for a period of time. So this album kind of documents like being with Greg, then being in this love triangle, and then me and Greg deciding to end our relationship for the sake of like, working together. And wanting different things in life, and then me and my current partner continuing. And so it's like this whole arc that's like discussed within the whole record. Like the album finishes with this song. No, in the middle there's this song called Lilac Hues, which talks about being, you know, if one person is red and blue, I'm like in the lilac hues in between them both. And then yeah, we kind of finish on this notion of like only one person can have my perfect future, my future perfect. So I did
I
inherently
love
choose.
Lilac Hues. I think it's funny because I think I've got it that it bookends the album. So
Did I put it?
um
Did I put it at the end?
I've got it that you've got it at the end. Yeah. And then I was scared that I hadn't listened to the whole album. But I
Oh no,
have.
I did. Do you know what? That's so funny because that was such a last minute
You made
change.
me think that I'd like missed off half the album. I was like,
Do you know what's funny? It's like in my head is like an order, like it goes through so many like iterations of orders before we settle on the final one. And like I think in my head is still like the original order that I had before it was like mixed and mastered. No, I chose to put it at the end for a statement, but yeah.
it
Got
is,
my own
yeah.
back.
Well, that was going to be my next question. So obviously, Hurricane is huge as an opener. You've got Lilac Hues as one that's like so gorgeous sonically, a bit of a wind down towards the end of the album. But like, if you're really plugging in, it's got this like sort of uncertainty to it, and now obviously explained why. But yeah, I was going to ask you about track listing and curation. So like, how important is that to you? And I guess you must have gone back and fro with a team about it.
It's funny, I didn't all of the decisions were mine, and that was kind of like the most beautiful part about running my own label and self A&Ring is that like ultimately I was the last backstop. But me and Greg did this funny thing when we were in the process of finishing it. This was last year and we had 2 weeks in South Africa to like really get the bulk of it finished. And we asked all of our peers in the industry in Cape Town, so all of our friends who are like musicians or worked in the industry, to come to an album listening at the end of this 2 weeks. And we booked the album listening before we'd even started like day one in the studio, and it was like the most intense amount of pressure because we knew we had this event at the end that when we needed something to show. And then we got like 20 of our mates to sit down, and these are judgy like music friends who like we really value their opinion. They are nothing to do with like, you know, they don't have any monetary interest. And then we gave them all a piece of paper and a pen, and they anonymously wrote notes on all of the work that we did, that we shared in the order that we shared. And then the following week we took those notes, and that was our version of A&Ring. So that was like, oh, that song didn't fit there. Oh, that song was like way too long, or I loved that part, or oh. So we had this like really strange, honest feedback that helped us shape the final order, that helped us shape, you know, some of the put the icing on the cake, I guess. Like, and also like sometimes it's hard to see the wood from the trees when you're in the middle of making a record. Some records come about from like an intense period of time, um like, you know, 2 weeks in the studio or 3 weeks in the studio, and other records like come about because you're doing like one day in the studio every few weeks, and then suddenly you pull it together at the end. um so yeah, that I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, I get it. And also showing it to friends, I guess you have the most honest feedback, but trusted feedback as well.
Yeah, brutal. Although sometimes I was like,
Mm.
I know who that is. Savage. I was like, you don't even like this genre. Why are you here?
I well, I love the spoken word part in it. I was listening to this album mostly in headphones rather than out loud, and I feel like it just made it sort of really intimate, and it made me lean into church more as well. So the spoken word part of the vision. What was the decision making with this? I know I've been to see some of your more stripped back shows where you've um done some spoken word as well. So I know that this is a part of what you do, but yeah, talk to me about the vision.
I think it's funny because I dropped church before anything else, before I even announced the album. And that was a statement that I wanted to make in terms of like where Låpsley's heading. And then when it came to the placement of church on the album, I feel like it was such a big topic for me to broach and one I've never broached before that I needed to almost like set it up. And the vision was an opportunity for me to. So this album is something that I want to be listened in the order, and I wouldn't say all of my
Mm.
records like I I want that or it's needed to get the best experience, but to listen to the vision before church, like it was an opportunity to kind of show the poetry side of me, and production and poetry was like how I entered the industry. And obviously now I'm like more of a writer and like I work with different producers, but words is still the center of my world. And I think poetry is so powerful in spoken word. And like, I don't know, now there's no rules and there's no one on my shoulder saying that you have to be a certain way or have to express a certain subject in a certain way. I think to talk about a subject so sincere and close to my heart, like with a woman's words, was like, there's no frills. Like it is quite exposed and vulnerable.
Yeah. I would say actually lots of the records, well, all of it is pretty vulnerable. Must have been cathartic for you to pen. I feel like lyrically as well, this is like such an amazing body of work. Is there like a tune that fans have maybe been empathizing with the most, or like, just one that's like kind of stood out to you since the release of the record, like people have really been in tune with you?
Yeah, there's two songs for different reasons. I'd say The North Face has kind of stood out from fans as quite like an unexpectedly angry song that people have
Mm.
really resonated with. There's an anger when a relationship ends. There was an anger that maybe I couldn't just have two people in my life and something had to change. But there's also like the lyric is like, hiking up the North Face, at least we went there. Like no stone left unturned, but Cupid ain't that effing fair. Um, and this idea of like, climbing up the north face of a mountain is like notoriously like the hardest side to climb. Um, and it was tough trying to pull this relationship off. And even though ultimately it ended, I'm so glad that we did it. And I'm so glad we did it the way we did it. So there's anger at the end of it, but there's also like a lot of love for the journey. And loads of people seem to relate to that. And yeah, unexpectedly quite like me being angry. And I think there's a lot of rage that like as women we're told to like suppress, or there isn't like an acceptable way to express rage. Mainly because, it's one of those emotions that's like seen as like you're either seen as like you got a bit of a screw loose, or like you've like not got yourself together, or you're like a bitchy person, or like and so I kind of wanted to show it in my way. And I think going into that like King Cruel-esque like almost
Mm.
like post-punk kind of like get your head down, like that's how I express my anger, like when I'm in a mosh pit. So I wanted to kind of create that thing. And then the other one is like Jericho, which is a song about I wrote during those 2 weeks in South Africa, and that was about the changing nature of the studio, once being this like weirdly sexual vulnerable place, and now they're suddenly being boundaries, which annoyed me, even though like obviously for like we weren't
Obvious
together anymore,
reasons,
so
yeah.
it's needed. um and the chorus is like, I don't want to tell you that I want you back. I want it bad. What? I don't want to do. Da, 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 da. I've got your back, but I want it bad. This idea of like, I've got your back. I'm not going to cross a boundary, but like, I still want to go there. So it's like, it's pretty cheeky, and apparently so are all my fans, because that one's doing so well.
Oh my God, yeah, definitely. I remember listening back because I was like, Jericho, like, what does this like? When you go scroll through the track list and you have a look, and you're like, okay, these are the ones that I'm not getting the gist by the
Oh yeah,
name of
Jericho's
the
in like
tune.
the holy place to protect like the fallen walls of our holy place, like
Mm,
kind of. And like for me the studio is a sacred place, and that specific studio with that person was like our holy place that we protected.
mm.
And it felt, and that space had shifted, but it was still like a holy place. I don't know, sexy
Such
vibes.
a peek behind the curtains, things we love to hear
Yeah.
about. Okay, I can see lots of questions coming in, but I do want to ask you before we get into those. So, any more questions, get them in now or forever hold your peace. I love the visuals. I think that actually now that you said where the album was recorded, I can sort of understand like the album cover and the stance and everything. And just the strength in it. I love it. But also the visuals in the bathtub for women like that. I was like, chef's kiss, this is amazing. Um, and I also want to mention, sorry, I know this is a million questions rolled into one, but I know I've got one. Um, the visuals on Church with It's Young You as well. I'm just like, this is very cute and amazing. In terms of visuals, how were you, was this like a lot collaborative? Was a lot of this from your own mind? Like, yeah, talk to me about the visuals.
It was all from my own mind, but I work as the creative director of the label with Jean Bouchy, who's my kind of, I want to say long-term collaborator, but it's probably been about 2.5 years since the last EP, really. We've started working together, and we do everything together. The photography, like the music videos, all like we are two peas in a pod. And I present to her an idea and she'll flesh it out in real time of like how we can turn this into a music video. And it's phenomenal working with someone who you can, where you both have equal respect for your views and like what you creatively bring to the table. Um, and yeah, all of the videos are so personal. For example, like Church was filmed in the courtyard of the church where my family is buried and the matriarchs, and like it was really surreal talking about the fact that I don't feel like the patriarchy is changing whilst I'm like dancing a few feet away from where my grandma and her mum was buried. So that where and I'm wearing my granddad's kilt as well as I'm dancing. So I'm kind of there's a meaning to the androgyny like in that video because I'm talking about like what it means to be a woman and not really understanding and seeing any change within equality. And then for example like what else? Well, oh yeah, well, we filmed everything in my hometown. Like Hurricane was like shot in the field where I learned to horse ride with a family friend's horse, and we got a queer hiking club to. They volunteered to be the men running around me. So like everything, yeah. Me and Jan have created the impossible, especially with such limited funds.
I think you mentioned, no, I think this might have been off air, but like it's just like going independent, you could just create this world. And so I think that the Lapsley world is, yeah, we're really like dipping into it, including the visuals and like everything, all the thought processes, all the little personal touches. Yeah, just amazing. Right, Cam on the Record Club's Facebook says, with this album being fully independent, did you feel more at ease or more pressure during the creative process?
Ease. Yeah, for sure. There's not someone over your shoulder telling you if something's right or wrong, or someone that's afraid of you going in a direction that's too far away from what you've previously done. I think at any point that I had doubt, I would seek guidance from a person who I respected, and that usually wasn't someone who worked in the industry from the music industry side. It was a fellow musician. Um, and that changed my kind of like self-assessment. um I've developed so much more self-confidence. This has been like a healing journey from kind of untangling a lifetime as an artist that has been not necessarily told what to do, but there's been like a watching and a judging eye over my life since I was like 17. And yeah, I think through people like Jean, through starting this label, through working only with the people that I want to on my terms, I've built this confidence back, and now I feel like I can truly show my art in all of its colors. And this is the product of self-belief and investing in one's own art on one's own terms.
Kieran on Instagram says, how do you reflect the themes of your music in your personal style? And who would you most like to collaborate with, dead or alive?
Okay, how do how do I show the themes of my music in my personal
I was
style?
thinking how they mean by
Oh, like
like,
fashion
that's what I was thinking.
or music. Do you know what? I think people used to say that I always just made sad music, and I think it's because like when you're having a good time, you're less likely to sit there and want to write it in your notebook. So I think for some reason you kind of only seem to like write down what you remember as like the strongest feelings that week, and they're usually negative ones.
It's
Um,
getting them off your chest though, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've never like, okay, I'll answer it in two different ways. In terms of fashion, I kind of feel like I put on so many different faces in life that my artistry is drag. And I really like resonate with Chapel Roan when she talks about like her artist project as drag being not just like another face, but like an extension of oneself. And like this whole thing is like created by me, by my essence. And so like to expand it to like fashion and the visual side of it was like a huge part of it, especially with this album. But that's a learned thing. I never used to do it. I used to hide away and wear all black and hide behind coats. So that's quite a new thing. In terms of style, like of music, like I feel like everybody always saw me as like electronic or like minimal electronic or like dipped into disco. And I was like, I'm an indie gal. I'm a pop gal. I don't want to be in a box. So yeah, no rules.
Maybe hip hop next. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. Rap.
Kieran's also asked who you'd like to collaborate with, dead or alive.
Oh, CMAT. I love CMAT
Yeah.
so much.
Oh my
Oh,
god, putting that out into
and
the atmosphere.
we kind of
See,
talk
Matt,
about
if you're
similar
listening.
stuff. I know we talk about similar stuff. I'm a Northern gal. She's an Irish gal. Like
I see it happening.
talking about the female experience. Yeah, and like, oh, she's such a babe. Who else would I like to? I used to be obsessed with James Blake. Early James Blake was such a huge influence on me. I think that would be really cool.
James,
Who
see,
else was
Matt,
it?
if you're listening,
Yeah.
let's make it happen. Sorry, we've got someone else as well.
Yeah, go.
Zoe on Instagram says, you've said this might be your last record for a while. How do you cope with burnout? Will you venture into something non-music related?
I already venture into like non-music stuff. I like well, it's funny, I trained as a doula, so I helped people give birth for a while. And then I started a
What?
PP degree, which was random. And now I do have a foot in politics in terms of like I do a lot of campaigning for supporting the arts.
That's good. We need a sane voice.
Yeah, I love politics. I think if I ever stepped out, I would probably go into politics again. Again. And
Låpsley for president.
yeah, I think
Prime
because
Minister.
Låpsley for president. Yeah, no, exactly. No, I love people and I love activism, and there's a lot of change that needs to happen, and there's a lot of funding that needs to happen in the arts. But like, I guess I say like I need to take a break because it's taken so much time, energy, and money to create this record, and I want to put out other people's stuff as well as my own. So I need to raise capital, and there's lots of things that go with that. But you know, we're talking like, I don't know, let's just wait six months and I'll get bored and put a single out. Like, you're not gonna be waiting that long.
Yeah, your long is like, oh yeah, no, I've had my life and now I need to write something else.
Yeah.
Well, look, that is actually all we have time for today. We have loved having Låpsley join us. Obviously, make sure to get yourself on a physical copy rather of a I'm a Hurricane, I'm a Woman in Love. Now that this episode is over, pick one up from your local record store. Also excited to announce before we leave that the winner of this week's Bowers Wilkins wireless headphones prize is Kieran on Instagram. Please slide into the Record Club's DMs. We'll get those headphones to you. My name's Jess Izzat. Thank you everyone for joining us and sending in your questions. This and all previous episodes are available to watch back on Spotify or YouTube. I will see you for the next episode of the Record Club. But for now, Låpsley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jess.